ever play that game of telephone when you were a child? You know, the one where you start with a sentence like, Jane is wearing a hat. And you whisper it to the next person who whispers it to the next person, and on down the line till it comes all the way to the other end of the chain and is said out loud, the result being something like, Dan loves a bat. Now, at sleepovers, this could reduce preteen girls to dissolve in puddles of laughter. I interned at the Environmental Protection Agency as a grad student. I was drawn into environmental policy by my love for the woods, for the oceans, for the mountains, for those untamed places amidst our country. My internship, as it turned out, was in a windowless office in the Office of Hazardous Waste. And one of the things I learned on my very first week on the job was the connection between hazardous waste and organized crime in this nation. This was not something even within my frame of reference in any way. And it was an understanding that was much bigger than anything I wanted to understand. And so for 12 weeks, I just tried not to think about it for 12 weeks. And after that summer, I took a temp job to working on economic and educational policy to get myself through the rest of grad school, and I never went back to environmental policy directly because those questions just seemed too large. Truth in all its forms can be hard to handle. I don't think I need today, and I will not today, spend much time talking about the prevalence of dishonesty, false news, and just blatant lies all around us. You know this, they're all everywhere. From the news of the criminality of those crossing our borders to the idea that the Holocaust is a myth, to curricula teaching climate science as bunk, there are false claims all around us wearing truth clothing. The authors of a 2017 report on the rise of media extremism concluded that attention hacking, trolling, media polarization, and other tactics have allowed an unprecedented rapid rise in hate-based extremism that's growing in this nation, especially targeted towards Muslims, people of color, and women. Young men are particularly susceptible. If anything is said to be politically correct, this can be like waving a red flag in front of a bull. But what is, I think, really striking is that these researchers in their study were interviewed again earlier this year in 2019, but this time not about their study, but about themselves, about the extreme depression, anxiety, fear, and shame they feel, those who are researching extremism. Because not only is their research not being taken seriously or is anything being done with it, but it is actually now appearing that research on extremism appears to be promoting extremism as well, as if opinion has become its own truth. Like I said, I don't need to spend a lot of time on this. So what I am going to talk about is an old-fashioned religious concern which has to do with truth and truthfulness, which by all measures is at an all-time low among us right now. I want to talk today specifically about those practices we can take, like those breaths we can take, which make us resistors rather than transmitters of false news, for in this culture of bullying, othering, and lying, we are all slowly being inundated into all kinds of untruth. We are swimming in the murky water of meanness, the cesspool of suspicion, the glory of the gotcha moment, and confusion where opinion is too often being treated as fact. How do we keep from being unwitting accomplices? Because I don't believe anyone here would want to be a witting accomplice. Buddhist teacher Tara Brach notes that we can resist untruthfulness through two different ways. There are errors of omission and there are errors of commission. Errors of omission are when we deny or ignore a truth, like me in my Environmental Protection Agency days, trying really hard not to think about the mob. Commission is when we actually perpetuate falsehoods through rumors or gossip or the various games of telephone that we can start even without the intention of doing so. Omission first. You know, this is a world where we need to, all of us, at some point in the day, turn away and not be overwhelmed. The world is, it is documented, changing at the fastest pace in history, and there's hardly any time to mourn what's being left behind. Resisting change and resisting hard truths is linked among us. And it's really important to honor groups like the Los Lomos students who are bucking a trend and actually looking at hard issues. And that particular generation is really showing up for that. And I'm really excited to say that last Wednesday, on a beautiful evening, more than 20 people showed up for a conversation about climate change. I'm glad that we remember that there are certain things that we should not forget. Tara Brach says that the first step towards health in a difficult world is what she calls liberatory acceptance. As thinking and caring creatures, she says, we will do better if we accept what's hard rather than putting all of our energy into resisting it. And it's true in our personal lives. How much energy do we put into denying that we or someone we love has a problem rather than accepting it, perhaps mourning the losses associated with it, and then using the energy that we have to help or address the causes? Tara Brach. Acceptance allows us to respond wisely. Acceptance does not have to do with any particular behavior. It is a quality of presence that allows us to live our life out of wisdom and compassion. Our capacity for acceptance is our capacity to be with what comes up about us within ourselves, whether it's wrestling with our family, with addiction, with our past, or with other troubles that sometimes we'd rather just push away. To accept truths as hard as these about what we're doing and about what's happening all around us in our bigger environment, we need to do a couple other things as well. We need to take time for rest and self-care. We need to have quiet and restorative practices like the ones we are offering more and more of here. We need those more than we need yet another analysis of some report that's being aired on the 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9:15, 9:25, 10, 11, 12, and on news. Being this attentive is not allowing us to rest our brains and our hearts. We need actual contact with the actual natural world. Even sitting on a bench or in a parking lot at the edge of a natural area will do that. Accepting difficult truths doesn't make them go away, and what is clear is that we cannot take it all on. We know that. Research now points at two different things generationally that I think are really important for us to note. That there are many people who are older among us who are feeling shamed because they don't feel like they'll ever understand everything that is going on right now or how they are supposed to respond. And the youngest among us are feeling so completely despairing by understanding too much of it and not even sure that they will have a future to embrace. Neither of these paths is sustainable. A measured engagement, that balance between engagement and comfort that Miranda talked about, can be empowering. It's the difference between taking a self-defense class and seeing the need to be a vigilante. You know, it is important for us to look at that idea of truth, something that has been ingrained in us since that very first person who became a Unitarian decided to read the scriptures themselves and have their own interpretation. It's part of our history. In past decades, we have reimagined that to say that we should trust no authority, and these times would also affirm that. But in today's world, it may be just as important to be sure of the accuracy of anything that you choose to pass on. I know I am very careful about this in a digital sense now, having been called out by Snopes sightings a few times myself. It's important, too, because the sins of commission are more prevalent. And we come from those people who read the scriptures for themselves, who come to their own conclusions, but we are not immune. The idea that there are multiple truths does not mean that there are no truths, or that anything that anyone says should be just continued to be spun out endlessly. Many opinions are actually not based in facts. In a world of multiple truth is not about agreement or coming to one opinion where one wins and another loses. Padraig Otuma, who works to build relationship in Northern Ireland, says agreement has rarely been the mandate for people who love each other. He says, I like the phrase, the argument of being alive. Perhaps we all must feel more like we can engage in the argument of being alive, but in a civil way. In the waters in which we swim, how are we part of looking at the facts and stopping the rumors? It's not easy. In fact, it never was, because we live in a world of imperfect and incomplete information. But we can ask ourselves some questions to focus more on a mission of healing our world, our planet, our human family, and its communities, including this one. We can ask ourselves, what is the source of this? What might be the motivation? How do I engage in disparaging or unkind comments about people or groups? Do I find myself speaking about people but not with them or to them? Am I seeding trust or distrust? If I am needing to alert someone to a danger, do I have evidence? Do I have evidence that this danger exists? Am I engaging instead in gossip? If we answer these questions, we find that we may have engaged in these acts of commission. This is not an indictment. Tara Brach offers a meditation. I invite us to engage in it now. You put one arm around yourself and you hug your best self. Come on, we can do this. And now you put the other arm around yourself and you hug your evil twin. We all make mistakes. We all can start anew. This year, my friends, I have had the experience of watching how false news is made. Not with any intention to harm, but because some truths were just too hard to handle. I really understand that. Too hard to accept. Efforts to correct inaccuracies have been labeled as thought control or false news themselves. And the worst part about this, the part that just has torn me apart, is to watch those who are already feeling most vulnerable among us targeted and not feel like they can reach out to the resources of their church because they've been told to mistrust me or our other dedicated leaders. Gossips and rumors have endangered this community, and I need to stand before you today as someone who's learning what it's like to live every day under the real threat of physical violence. It takes a lot of time, if nothing else, and a lot of energy. I have struggled with acceptance on this, and I have also given it a lot of thought. And my considered response has been to hug my evil twin and hold myself accountable for where I might not have heard the fear of change enough, or where I may have grown impatient, because I know what it means to us as a community to not be more hospitable. I have also asked for direct conversations, and when they have been granted, those conversations have been a great gift. Thank you for those of you who've done that. Indirect conversation will not end the othering. It will not give people the resources of this congregation. At the end of this month, we will have more conversation about our multicultural work, which I believe has become a bellwether for all the change among us. We will have actual conversations, dessert and discussion, 4x4, where people who might hold different truths are invited to talk to each other, not about each other. There's a sign up on the adult programs table. If you have opinions, disagreements, or questions, or know someone who does, please come and encourage them to come too. Truth is as valuable and necessary as air. Without it, our relationships cannot breathe. Without facing what is true, we may not all be able to breathe. We can offer one another that argument of being alive that Otuma talks about, that respect of honest disagreement. You know, and there are a lot of 1960s movies where we see that courthouse scene where a man puts his hand on a Bible, it's almost always a man, and he swears to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, right? Well, maybe we can put our hands on our hearts, on our dreams for a future that works, on our desires for the most peaceable life we can live and create for others in this world of swirling change and dissension. Because I believe truly that this can continue to be a place of liberating acceptance, a place where kindness withers misinformation, where we keep and nurture the seeds of critical truths, such as that we need one another, that we need this planet, and where we can remember that small things matter, like the gift of a berry that represents the only thing you own, or the willingness to speak from truth, and the decision to act every day from a foundation of love. No other truth is bigger than these.